All right, the Cleveland Browns' talent on this team is truly undeniable. And we're going to get into that. And I have an article that shows just kind of the wealth of talent and honestly coaching talent too. I mean, it goes both ways. But before we do that, if you're new to this channel, we started with Another One Sports Talk Detroit, but we started this channel for teams that the national media kind of ignores, teams that we can kind of relate to as Lions fans. The Browns are, of course, one of those teams. And it was a hard end to the season, just the way in which you lost in the playoffs. I'm sorry to remind you, and I know that, and watching it myself as well. But there is a lot of things going on. So here's what I want to do. Please, as you're watching this, put in the comments a couple of different things where you're saying, yep, they deserve that award. No, they don't. And I think there's a couple here that are very clear. Yes, they do. And a couple where it's like, oh, I don't know. Do they? Do they or don't they? So Myles Garrett, Joe Flacco, headline, handful of Browns up for AP, Associated Press Awards at NFL Honors. These are considered the big ones of the offseason, right? So we know that Myles Garrett is up for Defensive Player of the Year. He saw a sharp drop-off in sacks, they said in this article, in the last 7 weeks. He's still at 14. Like, who does that? That's remarkable. Over the final 7 games of the season. But he still ended with 14 sacks, 30 QB hits, 17 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, and 1 recovery, of course. Do you believe Myles Garrett, that's your first comment, actually deserves Defensive Player of the Year? I understand. All of us say he should be there. Does he deserve to actually be the Defensive Player of the Year? And do you have confidence in him anchoring this defense years going forward? The answer should be yes. But anyways, you can say whatever you want. The next one is kind of interesting. It's Joe Flacco. And it's always hard for me not to say Shane Falco, Footsteps Falco. But he's nominated for Comeback Player of the Year. As we know, he was obviously this was a great story. This is a feel-good story. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, baby, like he's going to be good. And it kind of ended in an unfortunate way. Like he was gunslinging and it came crashing down. And that's what can happen. The one thing that he continued to do is turnovers. I actually had to eat some crow on that. I remember I made a video before their playoff game talking about don't worry about it. Like, this is what you've asked him to do. And one of the things that made Joe Flacco so good is that he just kind of was throwing with reckless abandon. I thought at times Deshaun Watson was just absolutely too safe. And so it was nice to see a quarterback that was willing to throw in tight windows, that was willing to put the ball almost in harm's way with the opportunity to make great plays. And what you see when that happens is you see like Amari Cooper go off, and that's the good side of it, and it can win you games, but you also can see that it can lose you games. But that doesn't mean he should or shouldn't be in the running for Comeback Player of the Year. It's just nuts what he was able to do. I still think it's hard because it wasn't a whole year, but leave in the comment, do you think that he deserves that? The next one is going to be interesting, and this is the one that I really want your comments on, Browns fans, and it is head coach Kevin Stefanski. He finds himself amongst 4 other coaches, candidates for AP Coach of the Year. I don't know who the other candidates are exactly. I'm just reading this for the first time. But when you think of all he went through, whether it was the Deshaun Watson thing, losing Nick Chubb, whether it was the 5, 6, 4, I don't know what it was, starting quarterbacks, whether it was just the litany of injuries, it seemed like you had an injury list every single week that was longer than the amount of starters that the Browns had. Do you believe he, while bringing the Browns to an 11-6 record, do you believe that he is deserving of Coach of the Year? I think it's awesome that he's there, and he should be there. But do you believe he should be Coach of the Year? And furthermore, Browns fans, do you think Kevin Stefanski is the answer long-term as this team's head coach? I've been very clear in videos in the past that, like, this is the first time you have had stability since, I want to say, like, the late 80s. The Belichick era was kind of, maybe Schottenheimer. Anyways, like, it was the late 80s was the last time you had stability. This is the first time you've had a 4 or 5 year stretch where you've consistently competed since the team got moved back to Cleveland. I think like that is one of those jobs where, especially all that he overcame, that you have to talk about it. All right, the next person that's up for an award is defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. All right, I know Jim Schwartz well. As you know, like I said, Lions fan, he was our head coach. I thought until Dan Campbell, he was probably the best head coach we've had since the 90s. And I think that there was some talent issues. I think there was some things in him that he probably wasn't old enough, mature enough, more so not old, but mature enough to be a head coach when he was the head coach for the Lions. But he is absolutely there now. What he did with this defense was really impressive. Big rise by the metrics, big rise in a lot of different things. They need to shore up giving up big plays. Man, they know how to give up big plays on this defense. But he is there as one of the 5 NFL assistants up for AP Assistant Coach of the Year. Do I think he'll be a head coach? I haven't heard much of him getting interviews or anything like that. So that's good. It might be perfect. Like he's an older defensive coordinator, right? Even though he doesn't look 57. Nothing about him looks 57. He looks 43, right? But like he can be there for a while. Lean into this. This is fantastic. This is fantastic. As long as you hit your head offensive coordinator role, like this team could be in really good shape for a really long time. He will consistently run a good defense. He ran a good defense in Philly. He did good enough in Detroit. And before that, obviously he did good enough because he got the head coaching job in Detroit. So he's a good coach. So let me know, like, say some of these things, have some conversations with each other below, and just kind of talk about like, okay, so what are we looking at here? Are we looking at 4 guys who all deserve it? Do you think that Myles Garrett, Joe Flacco, Kevin Stefanski, and D coordinator Jim Schwartz should be the winner in every one? Or do you think some of them don't even deserve to be there at all in the nomination? Also, talk to me about how you're feeling. Let's just talk about an emotional tab on how you're feeling right now. We could talk about like the fact that there was all these things, and I feel like there was this emotional high for Browns fans, and then it all just kind of hit a hard crashing halt in that game to the Texans. And the comments went from like, Brownies, let's go. Everything was so positive on this channel. And now it's like everybody is just like, oh, we're stuck with Deshaun Watson. I think you're going to be fine. I really, really do. And I think he'll get back to closer to what he was. He was already on his way. He just needs a little help. And I think the right coaching changes can happen there. But tell me where you're at, Browns fans. How you feeling? Are you going to stay engaged this offseason as we continue to make videos? And are you excited about the future? All right. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.